So, we spend so much of our lives looking outward, right? At our jobs, our families, the stuff we own, trying to figure it all out. But what if we actually turned inward to that thing that's always there, what tradition calls the nefesh?
Right.
And this isn't, just our personal theories. We're really digging into some deep, established wisdom here, centuries of it.
Exactly. Forget fleeting opinions. This is rooted. And like you said, the nefesh, it's the ultimate constant, isn't it?
Yeah, think about it. Partners, kids, jobs, houses, money.
It all comes and goes, or changes at least. But the nefesh, it's always with you.
So exploring the nefesh is really about understanding ourselves. Like
fundamentally,
who you are. Okay, let's think about it another way. Imagine your nefesh is like an engine.
Okay.
You wouldn't just pour any old fuel in, would you? Diesel in a gasoline car.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't run right. Maybe not at all.
Right. It needs the correct input.
So, same idea here. The nefesh needs the right kind of, let's call it nourishment, the right fuel to, well, function properly and to produce what it's meant to produce.
And just like different factories make different things?
Right. One makes matzah, another bread, maybe one makes metal parts, another plastic.
Each nefesh, even though we use the same word, has its own specific needs. What it takes in, what it should put out, they're not all the same.
Not at all. Unique blueprints, kind of.
And it's fascinating, what happens when we get this wrong? If the intake is off.
What happens then?
Well, you might feel drained, just lacking that real vitality. It could even be harmful spiritually or emotionally.
And the output, if that's wrong.
Then you might feel this deep lack of purpose. Like your actions aren't authentic. They don't line up with who you really are inside.
Ah, okay. So this deep dive is really about figuring out our unique place, our individual purpose almost, and aligning that input and output.
Precisely. Bringing harmony between what nourishes you and what you contribute to the world, understanding your specific role within the larger picture of humanity.
It sounds incredibly complex, though, like trying to map a giant family tree.
It is complex. Think of it like starting with the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob.
Oh.
Then you get the 12 tribes branching out, then 70 souls, and eventually this vast multitude, 600,000.
Wow.
Our nefesh has a similar kind of intricate structure, infinite subdivisions within each one of us constantly shifting.
So where do we even start?
Well, for today, we're focusing on the foundational roots, not the constantly changing leaves and branches of daily experience, but the core structure.
The main branches of that tree.
Exactly. And understanding these roots takes both intellect and seshel and a kind of subtle feeling in the heart, regasha dakasha lev.
So head and heart working together.
Both are crucial for real self-awareness, though, let's be honest, complete understanding, that's probably a lifelong journey, maybe never fully attainable.
Okay. So we'll start with ideas the intellect can grasp.
Yes, we'll begin there. But, and this is important, we'll also need to emphasize sharpening that subtle inner perception, that feeling.
Because words can only do so much.
Exactly. Language has limits, especially when you're talking about the depth of inner experience. You have to feel it too.
Right. Got it. Where do we begin?
Let's start with a foundational concept. The nefesh can be understood through 4 primary components, and these mirror the 4 basic elements found in all of creation.
You mean fire, air, water, earth.
Precisely. Fire, wind, which corresponds to spirit or air, water, and earth. Everything in existence, according to this wisdom, contains these 4 foundations.
Okay, so we all have all 4 inside us.
Yes, everyone is all 4.
But obviously we're all different. So what makes the difference?
The key difference lies in the mix, the configuration. For each person, one element will be the strongest, the dominant one. Then there's a secondary, a tertiary, and finally, the weakest element.
The proportions vary.
Exactly. The proportions vary, but all 4 are always present.
And these aren't just like poetic metaphors. They connect to how we actually function.
Oh, absolutely. They're not just abstract. Early scholars linked these 4 elements to 4 fundamental attributes or forces within the nefesh. Practical drives.
What are they called?
There's the consuming force, kuchamakle, linked to fire, the motivating force, kochaminia, linked to wind, the life-giving force, kuchamaklaya, linked to water, and the shaping force, kochametzev, linked to earth.
Consuming, motivating, life-giving, shaping. Okay, let's break those down. Start with fire, the consuming force.
Right. Fire, esh. Its most basic nature is to consume. Yes, it also warms, it's fast, but its root power is consumption.
Yeah.
Making something else disappear, in a way.
Okay, and how does that play out? Does it connect to personality traits?
It does. Rabbi Chaim Vital connects this directly to the negative trait of pride, gava.
Pride. How so?
Well, think about fire. It naturally rises, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So a proud person feels elevated, superior. And according to this teaching, that feeling of superiority comes from a sense of canceling out or devaluing others.
So it's not just feeling good about yourself, it's feeling better than others by mentally diminishing them.
Exactly. It's a comparative elevation, and this is crucial, the consuming force itself at its core isn't negative. No, it's actually the engine for growth, for progress in life. Think about setting a big goal, maybe a financial one, say making $10 million.
Okay, big goal.
You achieve it. Huge accomplishment. But then what often happens...
You want 20 million.
Exactly.
Wow.
Why? Because the 10 million, while still there, no longer holds that same aspirational power. It's been, in a sense, consumed by the desire for the next level. Its importance is lessened in your mind.
So the drive to consume the current state allows you to move to the next one.
Precisely. It's about transcending where you are, not necessarily discarding it, but devaluing its hold on you so you can aim higher. This drive to consume limitations is fundamental.
Okay, that makes sense. So why do some people get stuck? They want the next level, but can't seem to get there.
Often it's because they want to ascend without letting go. They're still attached to the comfort or identity of the lower state. They haven't fully consumed it mentally or emotionally.
Trying to hold on to both.
Right. And that internal conflict weakens the consuming power needed for liftoff, so to speak.
So people who achieve really big things, they have a strong capacity to consume the lesser priorities, to really let go mentally.
Yes. They possess a strong consuming force. They can fully consume distractions, lesser goals, even past successes to maintain that sharp focus on the primary objective.
Okay. Now, if someone listening feels like their fire is maybe a bit weak, how could they cultivate it? Is that possible?
It starts with understanding, recognizing consciously that a previous stage or achievement no longer holds the ultimate value for you anymore.
Acknowledging you've outgrown it.
Exactly. That acknowledgement allows the natural consuming process to kick in. Then you consciously focus on the new goal, understanding why the old one isn't the main focus anymore. That fuels the fire. Self-control then helps align mind and heart.
So it's an internal shift in value.
It is. And remember, the fire element itself is neutral, like a tool. Used, well, it fuels progress. Ascent. Used poorly.
Destruction. Arrogance.
Exactly. It can lead to literal destruction or that internal pride we talked about. Wisdom is choosing what to consume, letting go of limitations, not relationships or core values.
So the positive essence of fire in the nefesh is that drive for growth, for elevation, built on consuming the current state. It's not about just being content.
Correct. Contentment is a different valuable quality, but fire is about the drive beyond contentment. And the stronger the force, generally, the bigger the potential leap and growth.
And the negative side we see is, well, arrogance, burning bridges maybe.
Yes, practical negative manifestations could be actual destruction or that internal sense of superiority. There's also that teaching die before you die, often applied to acquiring deep wisdom like Torah.
What does that mean here?
It implies you need to consume your attachment to worldly desires, to your current limited self-concept within your soul. You make space, you clear the ground, so you can ascend spiritually.
Wow. Okay, powerful stuff. Let's move to the next element, wind or spirit.
Ruach.
Right, wind. Its core nature is movement, pure motion.
How is that different from fire's movement? Fire rises.
Ah, good question. Wind can move in any direction, up, down, sideways. And crucially, its movement is inherent. It doesn't need to consume something first to move. Fire moves as a consequence of consumption. Wind just moves.
It's movement for movement's sake.
Pretty much. Think about rocking a baby. Why do we do that? Why does it soothe them?
Never thought about it that deeply.
From this perspective, there's a fundamental human need for movement rooted in this wind force within the nefesh. It's innate. So we all have this drive, even if wind isn't our strongest element.
Yes, it exists in everyone, but when wind is the dominant force, you see individuals with a really strong intrinsic drive to be active. It's less about the outcome, or even if they like the task. They just need to be doing.
Like someone who paces while thinking, or always needs a project. That restless energy.
That could certainly be a manifestation, yes. And again, this inherent movement isn't necessarily directed towards growth like fire or any specific goal initially. It's just activity.
Interesting, like occupational therapy, giving people tasks just to engage that need for activity.
That's a perfect practical example. It taps into that fundamental need for motion.
But what starts the motion if it's not consuming something like fire?
Well, the deepest answer is the creator imbuing creation with this inherent dynamism. But on the individual level, some people just have this motivating force as a primary characteristic of their nefesh. It's just stronger in them.
So the wind element is that internal engine, the power of motion itself.
Exactly. We can define it as the inherent force of movement for its own sake. We all require some motion, but the individual work is learning to direct that force purposefully.
Makes you wonder. People who find it hard to sit still during, say, prayer or meditation, could that be a strong, unchanneled wind element?
It's complex, of course. Many things could be going on. But yes, an undirected or restless wind element could definitely contribute to that feeling. Even in spiritual settings, the energy needs an outlet or a focus.
So like fire, wind isn't good or bad in itself, it's about direction.
Precisely. The element in its pure form is just the power of motion in the nefesh. Its value comes from how it's channeled.
Okay. Next up, water. Maim, the life-giving force.
Yes, water. Its nature is the life-giving force. It's the root of vitality, that feeling of being truly alive in the nefesh.
How does that manifest? How do we see it in people?
Well, externally, you might see people going through the motions. Life is okay, routine maybe. They might acknowledge things aren't perfect, but there isn't necessarily a deep, aching lack of vitality. Contrast that with others who seem to be constantly searching, seeking more life force in different areas, work, hobbies, relationships, travel, looking for that spark.
Always seeking something more vibrant.
Exactly. There's an image used like fish leaping out of water for just a single drop, that constant search for more vitality, more aliveness.
So it's a thirst for life itself. How is that different from fire's drive? Fire also wants more.
Crucial difference. Fire drives you towards a higher level, to be different, to achieve more, to ascend. Water drives you to seek more life force, more being, more connection, more feeling alive right now.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Someone seeking validation for being righteous, wanting that higher spiritual status, that's often fire. But someone who gets that validation yet still feels empty, disconnected inside, that points to a lack in the water element's fulfillment in that moment.
Ah, I see. So achieving the higher level doesn't guarantee feeling alive and vital.
Not at all. In fact, sometimes the intense striving of fire can almost dry out the water. The relentless focus on ascent can make you lose touch with the feeling of vitality in the present.
So the water element is that continuous search for feeling vibrant, connected, alive.
Yes. And people where water is dominant, they're constantly seeking this. It's a primary motivator for them.
How might this difference play out in, say, how people approach religious observance?
Good question. Someone dominant in fire might focus on the accomplishment, the reward, fulfilling the mitzvah correctly, the ascent it represents.
Right.
Someone dominant in water will be much more focused on the feeling, the connection, the inspiration, the sense of vitality they get from the practice. If they don't feel it, it can be a real struggle for them. They feel dead inside.
That really clarifies things. What about a more everyday example, like a job choice?
Okay. Imagine two job offers. One is higher status, better pay, fire appeal. The other is maybe lower status, but the work feels incredibly meaningful. The team is great. You feel energized doing it. Water appeal.
Someone strong in fire might take the status job, even if it's draining.
Potentially, yes. While someone strong in water might lean towards the job that provides that sense of life and connection, even if it's less prestigious.
It really highlights different core motivations.
It does. And even listening to this, someone with strong fire might be thinking, how can I use this knowledge to ascend, to improve myself?
Get to the next level of understanding.
Right. While someone with strong water might be more focused on, how does this feel? Does this information resonate? Does it give me life, make me feel more connected to myself?
Different ways of engaging with the same information. So water, again, neutral in itself. The positive is the search for vitality.
Yes, the search for initial vitality and then renewed vitality, connection, life force.
And its nature. Fire tends to ascend, right? Water.
Water tends to seek its level or even descend, seeking connection, grounding. Fire can sometimes lead to detachment from the here and now in its upward focus. Water seeks to connect with the here and now. Building on water can actually be more stable, more grounded than building solely on fire's ascent.
Because it's rooted in present experience.
Exactly. Those operating strongly from water need to feel things, experience them fully, including obligations or spiritual practices. If the feeling isn't there, it can lead to disengagement, a feeling of death.
So where does the vitality come from for each?
For fire, vitality often comes from the achievement of the higher level. For water, it comes from the present connection and experience.
Interesting. Fire looks ahead, water looks around, in a sense.
That's a good way to put it. And this explains some internal conflicts. Water's positive drive for life contrasts with the negative feeling of lacking life, feeling dead. Interestingly, fire's drive to ascend often stems from that same underlying feeling. A lack of vitality in the current state motivates the jump.
So that feeling of something missing fuels both, but in different directions.
Precisely. Fire seeks to constantly leapfrog to the next state. Water seeks to inhabit and connect deeply with the present state, to live in it fully.
Can you give one more really clear example of this difference in action?
Okay. Think about a time-bound ritual. Someone with strong fire might be anxious to do it the very first second it's permissible. The focus is on the accomplishment, hitting the mark.
Checking the box, almost.
In a way, someone with strong water, though, might be less concerned with the exact earliest moment and more focused on being fully present during the ritual, connecting with the meaning, feeling the experience, drawing life from it right then and there.
Got it. That makes the distinction very clear. So water is the soul's continuous search for vitality, for connection, for life force.
Exactly. Which brings us to our final element, earth.
Afar.
Earth. Grounding. Stability, I imagine. What's its core role in the nefesh?
Its fundamental nature is exactly that, to stabilize, to establish, and to give form or structure to the nefesh.
And its negative side. You mentioned Rabbi Chaim Vital links negativity to these two. Yes, for earth, he connects it to sadness, atzvut, and laziness or lethargy, atzvut.
Okay, sadness and laziness.
Yeah.
But its core function is positive, providing structure.
Absolutely. Think of the earth element itself. It doesn't really have inherent qualities of its own in the same way as fire's heat or wind's movement. Its purpose is largely to support, to serve as a foundation for the others. The Zohar calls earth an empty foundation that yields whatever you plant in it.
So it's receptive. It takes on the qualities of the other elements.
Very much so. It's receptive to their influences and doesn't really have an independent drive or will in the same way. Recognizing this, understanding your role is sometimes just to be that stable base, can lead to great humility.
And failing to recognize it.
Can lead to feelings of worthlessness, like I have nothing of my own, I just hold things for others. A feeling of being empty or useless.
But its positive role is essential. Establishing, maintaining.
Stabilizing. Absolutely crucial. Like building a house, you need that solid foundation. Or think of adding flour to a watery dough.
To give it substance, form.
Exactly. That's the earth element. Giving form, solidifying things. It provides the stability that's the opposite of wind's constant motion. Earth counteracts the tendency to be blown around, to be displaced.
And if earth is out of balance, too much earth, not enough wind.
That's where the laziness and sadness can come in. Stagnation, a lack of movement, initiative, dynamism. Everything becomes heavy, stuck.
But in its essence, before imbalance, earth is the foundation.
It's the bedrock. It provides the very basis for existence within the nefesh, giving things enduring reality, structure, form. A weaker earth element means someone might be less grounded, less structured, maybe flighty. A stronger earth element allows for building things, ideas, projects, relationships on a stable base.
So it structures the other elements too, gives fire, wind, and water their place.
Precisely. It gives them form, defines their boundaries, allows them to function within a coherent structure. Without earth, the others might be powerful, but chaotic, formless. Earth provides the container, the shape.
It's the basis upon which everything else is built.
Fundamentally. Weakness here undermines the stability and form of everything else.
Okay, so just to quickly recap the four roots. Fire is the consuming force for ascent. Wind is the motivating force for movement. Water is the life-giving force for vitality. And earth is the shaping force for stability and form.
Exactly. Those are the four root foundations of the midot. The character traits or forces within the nefesh, they exist in every soul.
And they're how we channel our energy.
Yes, they're the mechanisms. They don't decide things on their own, but they are how the soul's powers get translated into action and experience in the world.
So what's the practical takeaway for someone listening right now? How can they start using this?
Well, the first step is really self-observation. Gently, without judgment, start noticing. Which of these forces feels most dominant in you? Which one seems to drive your actions and reactions most often?
And also, maybe which one feels weakest.
Yes, exactly. Identifying your strongest element and also your weakest. Because often the weaker element is where our challenges lie. The work then involves learning to operate through your strongest element. That's your natural power source. Trying to act primarily through your weakest element is like wanting cold water and turning on the hot tap. It's frustrating and inefficient.
Makes sense. Work with your strengths.
And support your weaknesses. Often, the weaker element needs support from its opposing force to find balance, and strengthening that weaker element, channeling the stronger one. Well, that's the ongoing work of self-refinement, a topic for another time, perhaps.
Definitely. This is incredibly rich. Now, I bet some listeners are thinking, how does this relate to other systems? Like maybe astrology, fire signs, water signs.
It's a natural question. And while you might see some surface parallels in, categorization based on elements, the system we're discussing operates on a much deeper, more intrinsic level of the soul's structure. It's less about broad personality types and more about these fundamental energetic forces within the individual nefesh.
Gotcha. Deeper level. And another distinction, maybe. You mentioned Earth's negative side could be feeling worthless. How is that different from genuine humility, what the texts call anava versus maybe shiflut?
Great question. Anava, true humility, is recognizing your strengths, your talents, your virtues, but seeing them as gifts, not taking personal arrogance from them, understanding they come from a higher source. You earn them responsibly, but without pride.
Okay. And shiflut?
Shiflut is more like lowliness in a negative sense. It's often rooted in feeling inherently lacking, worthless, consumed by a sense of deficiency. Think of profound grief. Sometimes it can temporarily eclipse your awareness of anything good about yourself or your life. That feeling of being crushed, of having nothing of value, can be like shiflut. King David, for instance, sometimes describes himself in terms of profound lowliness, other times great strength, reflecting the capacity to hold different perspectives. But shiflut as a state is that feeling of being nothing.
That's a really helpful clarification. One last connection, maybe, going back to the beginning. Adam's sin, the curse involving dust you are, and to dust you shall return, and the earth element's role in shaping things. Is there a link?
There's a deep connection discussed. Before the sin, the primary power to shape reality, to manifest, was seen as more directly tied to faith, to a higher spiritual connection, a more direct creative force.
Okay.
After the sin, and that decree involving afar, dust, or earth, the earth element became, in a sense, the primary means for shaping and grounding things in the physical world. It's not necessarily the ideal way, but it became the dominant mode. It represents a kind of descent where creation and shaping became more tied to the physical, the material, the effortful work associated with earth, rather than the more effortless manifestation through pure faith.
So the earth element took on a more central, maybe heavier role in shaping our reality after that.
Exactly. It became the main vehicle for giving form and stability in this post-sin reality. Of course, even now, we strive to shape things through both faith and intention, connecting to higher elements, and through the practical grounding work of the earth element, the afar.
Wow. So much depth here. This framework of the four elements, fire, wind, water, earth, as forces within our own nefesh, really gives you a powerful new lens.
It does.
To look at your own motivations, your challenges, why you react certain ways. It's fascinating. Thank you so much for walking us through this.
My pleasure. It's profound wisdom to contemplate.
Absolutely. It's certainly given me a lot to reflect on. I really hope it's done the same for you, our listener. A whole new way to understand yourself,